They told you Africa was just deserts, jungles, and quiet tribes. But in just 30 years, Africa exploded into the bloodiest, wildest land rush in human history. Kingdoms collapsed, cities burned, empires rose and fell faster than anywhere else on Earth. And the real story, way crazier than anything you were taught in school. Most people have no idea how fast everything changed. One minute, Africa was a continent full of strong, proud nations. The next, a battleground, carved up by foreign powers, ripped apart by wars, betrayals, and secret deals. Today, we're diving into the chaos, the heroes, the villains, and the forgotten warriors who lived and died during Africa's wildest 30 years. How does a continent bigger than almost the whole world map put together get swallowed almost overnight? How do kings lose their crowns, armies lose their wars, and cultures vanish, all before anyone can even understand what's happening? And most of all, why did this chaos never fully end? Today we're answering those questions, and trust me, once you hear this story, you'll never look at a map the same way again. The ink on the Berlin Conference agreements wasn't even dry before the fighting started. Every empire wanted more land, faster, and they didn't care who they crushed to get it. Africa became a war zone. Not one big war, but 1,000 small ones all happening at the same time. Some were quick massacres. Some were epic last stands. Some changed world history forever. Let's dive into the biggest ones. If you think the wars were bad, what happened in the Congo was pure evil. Remember King Leopold II of Belgium? The guy who personally owned the Congo? He turned it into a giant forced labor camp. Rubber boom equals death sentence. Rubber was suddenly in huge demand for car tires. Leopold's agents forced millions of Congolese people to collect wild rubber under horrific conditions. If you didn't meet your quota, you were whipped with a cruel hippopotamus hide lash called the chikot. Your family could be kidnapped or killed. Your hands might be chopped off, literally as proof of punishment. Entire villages vanished. Historians estimate that at least 10 million Congolese died during Leopold's rule. Yes, 10 million lives. That's a full genocide that barely gets mentioned in most history books. The world finds out. Missionaries, travelers, and brave journalists finally exposed the horror. Photos of severed hands, starving children, and burning villages shocked the world. Facing international outrage, Leopold was finally forced to hand over the Congo to the Belgian government in 1908. But the damage was already done. Here's something you won't hear in most school lessons. Africa didn't just lose, sometimes, they won. And Ethiopia delivered the biggest, most humiliating defeat a European power ever suffered in Africa. The Battle of Adwa, 1896. Italy had dreams of building a new Roman Empire. They invaded Ethiopia, thinking it would be an easy victory. Big mistake. Under Emperor Menelik II, Ethiopia armed itself with modern rifles, cannons, even some French military advisors. When the Italians marched toward Adwa, they walked straight into a nightmare. On March 1, 1896, about 100,000 Ethiopian warriors attacked 17,000 Italian troops. The Italians were outnumbered, exhausted, and out of position. Within hours, the Italian army was crushed. Thousands were killed or captured. The survivors fled for their lives. Italy's dream of empire shattered right there. Major fact: Ethiopia became the only African country to successfully defend its independence during the scramble for Africa. It inspired anti-colonial movements around the world. Here's the ugliest legacy of this whole 30-year chaos. The borders drawn at the Berlin Conference and enforced by brutal wars made no sense. They split ethnic groups apart, forced ancient enemies together, and trampled on religious, cultural, and tribal lines. These borders were designed for Europe's convenience, not Africa's reality. So, who were the heroes of Africa's wildest 30 years? They weren't the kings with fancy European titles. They weren't the explorers claiming discovery of places millions already lived. The real heroes were the warriors who defended their homes, even when defeat was certain. The queens who refused to bow, like Ya Asantewa. The writers, teachers, and travelers who risked their lives to tell the truth. The everyday people, farmers, hunters, mothers, traders, who tried to survive the madness around them. And the villains? The greedy kings and companies who saw Africa as nothing but a resource mine. The brutal soldiers and officials who enforced impossible quotas with whips and guns. The arrogant politicians who drew maps without ever setting foot on the land. The scramble for Africa officially ended by 1900. Most of the continent was under European rule, except for Ethiopia and Liberia. But the real story didn't end there. The aftershocks of those wild 30 years still shake Africa today. Struggles for independence in the 20th century, post-colonial civil wars, economic and political chaos, and movements for African pride, unity, and restoration. The scars are deep, but so is the strength. Africa endured the wildest 30 years any continent has ever seen, and it's still standing. Madagascar's pirate kingdom. Before the scramble for Africa even started, Madagascar was already a legendary hotspot for pirates. But here's the crazy part. Some pirates didn't just steal, they stayed. They built entire communities with local Malagasy tribes. One of the wildest legends is Libertalia, a supposed pirate republic founded by ex-pirates and freed slaves. It had no kings, no masters, shared wealth and voting for leaders. It was basically an early anarchist dream, right on the edge of Africa. While historians debate if Libertalia truly existed or was part myth, there's no doubt that pirate colonies thrived in Madagascar. European powers eventually tried to crush them, but for a while pirates ruled their own corner of Africa. Imagine Captain Jack Sparrow, but leading a democratic tribe instead of a ship. The Lost Kingdom of Wakanda. No, really. Okay, not Marvel's Wakanda. But there was a powerful, secretive African kingdom that almost nobody outside Africa knew about until the 19th century. The Kingdom of Mutapa, also called Monomotapa, ruled huge parts of southern Africa, modern Zimbabwe and Mozambique. It had vast gold mines, sophisticated cities, and complex trade networks stretching all the way to India and China. European explorers stumbled across the ruins of Great Zimbabwe, massive stone towers and walls built without mortar, and were stunned. They refused to believe Africans could have built it. Yeah, colonial racism again. Instead, they invented crazy theories about lost white civilizations. But archaeology has proven it. Great Zimbabwe was 100% African. It was the real-world evidence that advanced, wealthy African empires existed long before Europe even knew they were there. The Maji Rebellion, 1905 to 1907, setting German East Africa, modern Tanzania. Germans had brutally taken over East Africa, forcing locals to grow cotton instead of food. People starved, families were torn apart. Finally, one massive multi-tribe rebellion exploded. The rebels believed they had magic water, Maji, that would protect them from bullets. Spoiler, it didn't. German machine guns slaughtered them by the thousands. But the rebellion united dozens of tribes who had never fought together before, laying seeds for future African nationalism. Tragic but powerful. Samori Touré's empire of resistance, setting West Africa, Guinea, Mali, Sierra Leone. Samori Touré was like the African Napoleon. He built a massive empire through diplomacy, trade, and war. But when the French came knocking, he went full resistance mode. Touré fought the French for over 17 years, using guerrilla tactics, scorched earth strategies, and clever alliances. He even built his own gun factories to keep his army supplied. In 1898, the French finally captured him, but they never truly beat his spirit. Today, he's remembered as a hero of African independence. Fun fact, Samori Touré's great-grandson is Ahmed Sékou Touré, the first president of independent Guinea in 1958. Talk about legacy. The secret slave wars of East Africa. Deep, shaping cultures, politics, and economies for generations. Today, when people talk about Africa, they often focus on problems, poverty, conflict, political instability. But what gets forgotten is the unbreakable spirit behind every story. Africa survived the scramble, the betrayals, the brutal wars, the genocides, the famines. And through it all, African civilizations, cultures, languages, and dreams endured, and still thrive today. The 30 wildest years in African history weren't just about survival. They were about resistance, resilience, and rebirth. And trust me, Africa's story isn't finished yet. It's just getting started. If you enjoy our journey, please like and subscribe to our channel, and if you like our content and want to support me, you are welcome to buy me a coffee. The link is in the description box below.